Hello and welcome to this online lesson for the British Online School. This is the third in a series of lessons for English that we've been producing this week and is aimed at Year 7s. This lesson talks about my story opening. Okay, so we're going to be doing a little bit of creative writing in today's lesson, which I hope you're prepared for. As usual, this lesson follows on with the same learning objectives as the last two lessons we've looked at. If you haven't done those, I would say it's a good idea to work through those before you start this one. So over the course of these three lessons, we will have learned how to communicate clearly, effectively, and imaginatively. We will have learned how to identify and interpret explicit and implicit information and ideas. And with this, we're going to be able to, in this lesson, write in a variety of sentences using full stops and capital letters, and to organise our writing into paragraphs using a range of connectives. So with that being said, let's get started. Just before we get into the proper meat of the lesson, I want to get us started on this quick starter task. So I want you to read through these 5 opening sentences to novels and give them a 1 to 5 star rating, where 5 is the best and 1 star is the worst. You then have to explain why they are effective or ineffective. Now, these are your opinions, okay? So it's your choice whether you give it a 5 star or a 1 star, but I need you to be able to explain that choice. Okay, that's the main point of why we're doing this. So the first of these is Call Me Ishmael, and this is from Moby Dick by Herman Melville. The next is My Mother Died Today, or maybe yesterday, I can't be sure. This is from The Outsider by Albert Camus. Number 3, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. This line is from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Number 4, I write this sitting in the kitchen sink. This is from I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Number 5, I'd never given much thought to how I would die, though I'd had reason enough in the last few months, but even if I had, I would not have imagined it like this. And that one is from Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. So take 5 minutes, okay, give each of these a 1 to 5 star rating and write a sentence explaining why you think they are effective or ineffective. Pause the video now, 5 minutes, see you in 5 minutes. So hopefully you should now have evaluated those 5 openings. I wonder which one you thought was the most effective. Possibly my favourite is the second one, from The Outsider, because I think that the fact that the protagonist or main character can't remember which day his mother died makes you really understand how discombobulated or confused or upset he is at the death of his mother, that he's lost track of time completely. And as a reader, you want to learn more about this. How did his mother die? How has this happened? How is he feeling? What's going on? Okay, but obviously it's your opinion, your interpretation. Those were all very good openings and were for very classic books or very popular books. So they've all worked to bring in a lot of readers. Now, what we're going to be doing today is writing a short story about waking up in the middle of the night and seeing or hearing something frightening. Okay, so it could be anything. It could be that you wake up in the middle of the night and there's a spider hanging above you. Now, my sibling would be absolutely terrified if that happened because they are severely arachnophobic, terrified of spiders. It could be that you wake up in the middle of the night and you see your mum yelling at you because actually you're late for school. It's not the middle of the night, it's the morning. Okay, so any of these ideas you could use or come up with your own. The idea is, the point of this is that we're focusing on writing something that's going to be frightening, going to be interesting, going to intrigue the reader. So to plan our work, to make sure that we have a good idea of what we're going to write before we start writing it, we're going to answer a few questions below. So these are: where are you sleeping? What wakes you up? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What do you do? And then finally thinking about what narrative hooks that you are going to use. So what I would like you to do is to spend 5 minutes now just answering those questions, making some notes. If you're stuck and you're not sure what to do, I'm going to go through and give you some example answers in a second. So you can keep watching the video, look at my examples, and then pause and write your own. So either pause now or pause in a second. So if you want some example answers, here are mine. Where am I sleeping? I'm sleeping in my bed at home, curled up under the covers and cuddling my toy shark, Blahaj. Now, Blahaj is huge. He's a big IKEA shark. He's really tall. It's very good for cuddling. What wakes me up? A strange weight landing on my legs. What do I see? Well, it's mostly black. There are a few rays of light from the street lamp outside my window, and these cast shadows on the wall. But all it means is that I can see a strange black shape is on top of my legs. What do I hear? I hear the sound of something sharp scraping on my duvet. What do I feel? I feel pretty terrified at this point. So what do? I get ready to scream and fling the intruder off my legs when it lets out a small mew, and I realise it's just my cat. So the narrative hooks I'm going to focus on using in this section are things like using short sentences to build tension at the beginning. So I was fast asleep. I had no idea what was going to rip me out of my dream when suddenly something landed on my legs. Okay. When I'm describing what I see or feel or hear, I'm going to try to use ambitious vocabulary. So instead of saying I'm scared, I could say I'm terrified or I'm petrified. Instead of saying black, I could use a word like obsidian, which means like a really dark black. Okay, and I can use that kind of ambitious vocabulary as well as similes or metaphors. So a simile is when you say something is like something. So if I said the moon is like cheese, that's a simile. If I said the moon was cheese, then that would be a metaphor. Okay, so I might say that the black lump that was on my legs was as hard as iron, was heavier than a small child. You know, you can make it up, be as overdramatic, as melodramatic as you want to be. Obviously, my cat isn't quite larger than a small child, but sometimes it feels like it when he lands on you. So if you've already answered your questions, hopefully those will have given you some more ideas, and you can maybe add those to add any extra ideas to your own in another colour. For those of you who haven't, pause the video now and answer your questions. Because I have my answers, this means that I know my story is going to be about a time when my cat, Oz, woke me up in the middle of the night by jumping on top of me. Okay, I've also planned what my narrative hooks will be, and that means that I'm ready to start writing. Once you've got your answers to your questions, once you know what your narrative hooks will be, you are also ready to start writing. Okay, so our main task for this week is to write a short story. Okay, we have some success criteria for this. So if you remember back from lesson 1 of this week, we had success criteria when we were writing our book review. We've also got 3 success criteria here for our short story. So the first one is that we want to make sure we are using simple, compound and complex sentences. Now, if you're not sure what they are, there's some information up there in the key vocabulary box, but I'll go through them now. So a simple sentence is a sentence consisting of only one clause. So it was hot. That's a nice, short, simple sentence. A compound sentence is a sentence with more than one subject or predicate, whereas a complex sentence is a sentence containing a subordinate clause or clauses. So what does this mean? A compound sentence is a sentence that has 2 independent clauses that are joined by a conjunction. So this means 2 things that could stand on their own independently. So for example, a sentence might be, the pirate captain lost her treasure map, but she still found the buried treasure. If we took away the but, we could make 2 different sentences there. The pirate captain lost her treasure map. She still found the buried treasure. So a compound sentence is when we have 2 different clauses that are stuck together with a conjunction. Now, a complex sentence is slightly more complex. Okay, slightly more complicated. This is a sentence that has 2 clauses, but one of the clauses wouldn't make sense without the other one. So for example, because the soup was too cold, I warmed it in the microwave. If we took away I warmed it in the microwave and just had because the soup was too cold, it wouldn't make much sense. So we need that second clause to make the whole sentence make sense. All right. So what I want you to be doing is making sure that you're using simple sentences, simple short sentences. So I petted the dog, as well as more compound sentences. I petted the dog, then I went inside. Your complex sentences are going to be something like, I petted the dog and then I went inside because I had to eat dinner. Okay, so that because I had to, that makes it a complex sentence. Okay, if you're a little bit stuck, that's okay. We'll get there with practice. Now, remembering using paragraphs. If you're a bit stuck, remember tip-top. Tip-top is something I always use to help me if I'm not sure. So that means that I need to change the paragraph every time there's a new time, place, topic, or person. Okay, so the TI in time, the P in place, the TO in topic, and the P in person. Tip-top. Okay. Sometimes we have silly acronyms in English, but they usually help somewhat. Now, with this, what I want you to do is spend about 15 minutes writing your story. If you're stuck, then just work on opening the few opening sentences. Think about the narrative hooks. Have a look back at the Percy Jackson extract we were using last week. Is there anything that you can magpie, you can borrow, ideas you can use from that extract in your own writing? So what I'd like you to do now is to pause the video and then spend 15 minutes writing before coming back. I'll see you in 15 minutes. Good luck. Well done. You've written a short story, or at least the start of one. So give yourself a pat on the back. You've done really well today. What we're going to be doing now is thinking about a little bit of self-assessment. Okay, if we're in a classroom, what we might do is we might share our ideas with other people, ask someone else to mark our ideas, or get the teacher to mark it. What we're going to do in this situation is we're going to mark it ourselves. All right, so what I want you to do first is proofread your story. If there are any spellings you're not 100% sure of, then double check them. Look them up on Google or in a dictionary. Check that you have spelt them correctly. Then what we're going to be doing is thinking about, have you met all the success criteria? So go back to the slide we had a little while back. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, there we go. So have you included simple, compound and complex sentences? Maybe try labeling and annotating your simple, compound and complex sentences if you're not sure. Have you used a range of punctuation, including commas? Have you used a range of paragraphs? Okay, so make sure you've done all these three things and that you've done things like using paragraphs correctly. So double check with tip-top. If you have any improvements, any changes to make sure you do it in a different colour so that you can see the improvements that you've made. Okay, this is basically so that we can see how we're improving, how we're getting better over time, and you can understand how you might mark your work in the future. I then want you to answer in full sentences these two questions. So number one, which parts of the success criteria were you confident with? What did you find easy? Maybe you found paragraphs really, really easy. You don't have a problem with that at all. But you're not as certain as when to use commas and when not to use commas. So that second part is thinking about what you're not as certain in. So which parts did you not do? Which parts did you forget? Or which parts weren't you confident with? Okay, so make sure that you answer those two questions. If you want a bit of extra challenge, ask someone else to read your short story. What do they think? If they suggest any changes, then make sure to do those edits in a different colour, again, so we can see how other people's ideas input on our own. So what I'd like you to do now is pause the video and spend 5 minutes working through your self-assessment, and I shall see you in 5 minutes. Well done, you've made it through lesson 3. So this last bit you need to do is your quick recap quiz. So to just check what you've learned in the last 3 lessons. What I'd like you to do, the first thing is to name one narrative hook used in story openings and explain why it is effective. So that's a 2-part question. You have to name the narrative hook and then explain why it's effective. Number 2, in which 4 situations should we start a new sentence? Okay, so remember that funny acronym that I talked about a minute ago? What 4 situations does that talk about? Number 3, what is a compound sentence? Number 4, name 2 things we should include in a book review. Okay, so this is thinking back to lesson 1. And number 5, bonus question for bonus points. What is the name of either my cat or my toy sharks that I mentioned in my story plan? Okay, well done, and thank you for sticking through another lesson here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've written a fantastic short story. Got budding writers on our hands. See you in the next lesson, and I hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.